Afternoon, everybody. It's Litsoc. It's Thursday afternoon, and here we are with Miss Keers, who is head of Year 10 this year, and has taught for many years alongside me not me, but amongst her colleagues in the Modern Foreign Languages Department. So welcome, Miss Keers, and thank you very much for coming to Litsoc.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me. So I bet you're all intrigued as to what on earth Miss Keers is going to share with you today. Well, the nature of Miss Keers' teaching is obviously foreign languages. So I'm going to share with you, from the point of view of foreign languages, some literature. And I'm going to introduce you to some writers who are extremely famous English language writers who were first language foreign language speakers. There aren't many, but those that do exist are extremely popular and extremely revered in their field. So it did get me thinking about text, because I love other languages. I love how words work in other languages, and I'm intrigued about writers who choose to write in a language that is not their mother tongue. If you can imagine doing that yourselves, if you want to write something, you automatically write it, your thoughts, in your mother tongue. To actually decide to write in somebody else's language is such a feat. So the first person I'm going to introduce you to, if you've not already heard of him, is a writer called Joseph Conrad. And Joseph Conrad wrote a book that I read when I started doing my English A-level, called The Heart of Darkness. As you can see, it is quite a skinny book, so if you would like to read it, feel free. The Heart of Darkness, it's a book about the human psyche, and it initially is a boat trip up the Congo River, and various adventures take place with the seamen, and various interesting thoughts and feelings are described in this wonderful book, which is hailed as one of the best pieces of English literature that you will read. Hence it was on the reading list for my A-level. I ended up doing maths A-level instead of English, but I started doing English A-level, and this is one of the books I read in the summer holiday. But you'll be very intrigued to know that the writer of said Heart of Darkness famous English text was Polish. His first language was Polish, and he grew up bilingual in Polish and French. I'll just say that again. He grew up bilingual in Polish and French. What language is this written in?
English.
Now can you see how amazing this person is? He wrote this novel, which is renowned in English, but he was a first language Polish speaker who was bilingual in French. So this is his third language, and it is so important as a text that we read it at A-level as an English text, but he was Polish. It's about the exploitation of the native African people, the relentless pursuit of power, and a journey into the depths of human psyche. So that's why it's an A-level text, as opposed to a GCSE text or something you'd find in a primary school. But it's extremely famous. Once you get of age and you fancy having a go, it is readable. It's very readable. And it says on the front cover, the original 1899 edition. So that's how old it is. So that's my first author. Polish, bilingual French, but it's an English text. Okay, this is why it's fascinating. So my second... before I go on to my second, the fascination with this particular text, why it appeals to us as English writers and speakers, is because within it is reference to French and Polish. So what he will do is he will use the French word order. So I've got some quotes here. He says, an immortality perfect and final. Now, we don't say that in English, do we? We would say a perfect and final immortality. And in French, they put the adjectives after the noun. So a lot of his writing has French word order, but in English. Another one he says is, in a voice, harsh and dead, which is interesting, isn't it? How can a voice be dead? But he doesn't say a harsh and dead voice. So there's a lot of French word order. Polish, he also uses the word now in English a lot. So every sentence has now in it in some parts of the text. Why? Because in Polish, the word for now is used extremely commonly. And in Polish, it is teraz. Now, I can't speak Polish. Can anybody speak Polish around the table? No. So it's T-E-R-A-Z, so teraz. And he will use the word now, because in his native language, now pops up all over the place. So there is references to his other languages, despite the fact he chose to write in English. And that's what people argue about. Is it because of the influence of the foreign languages that the writing is so rich in English? Other things he does, he will say incomprehensible, inconclusive, innumerable, insolvable, indefinable, inscrutable. And in Polish, there is a rhythm when you speak. And so he tries to mimic that rhythm in his adjectives that he uses in the text. So he is definitely coloured by his other languages that he's able to speak, which makes for richer English. Okay, my second novel. So the second person I'm going to introduce you to is somebody called Samuel Beckett. And Samuel Beckett was Irish. And he wrote a play called Waiting for Godot. You may have heard of it, may not. Fantastic. I'm so pleased you're in the room. You are lovely. Waiting for Godot. However, did you know that this Irish playwright, novelist, poet, did you know that he is was bilingual in English and French? Bilingual. Even though he was born in Ireland, he was bilingual because he came from a very literary and academic family. So he grew up speaking both French and English. Did you know that Waiting for Godot was written by him originally in 1949 in French? It is a French play. But he translated it himself, because he is bilingual, into English later, so that the English could understand it on stage. And this is a copy of Waiting for Godot. I don't know whether you can see from there. That is called a parallel text or a bilingual text. And on the front cover, it has the name of the play in English and in French. So it's Waiting for Godot, En attendant Godot. If you open up the text, because it's a parallel text, you've got the French on the left and the English on the right. So this is what you can read. Ça fait passer le temps. That passed the time. Il serait passé sans ça. It would have passed in any case. Oui, mais moins vite. Yes, but not so rapidly. Qu'est-ce qu'on fait maintenant? What do we do now? Je ne sais pas. I don't know. Allons-nous-en. Let's go. On ne peut pas. We can't. Pourquoi? Why not? On attend Godot. We're waiting for Godot. So it's about two men by a tree, basically for the whole play, who wait for this enigmatic character to arrive called Godot, who never does. So if you ever watch it, because it's a play, so if you ever watch it on stage, in English or in French, it's quite comedic as well. Because how on earth can you watch two men for a whole length of a play talking about waiting, which is what they do? And there are some critics who say, well, perhaps Waiting for Godot could be waiting for God, because God never actually arrives. God's already here. So who were they waiting for? And it allows for much criticism and analysis and theoretical thought about the nature of the human condition. Ultimately, we're all waiting to meet God, perhaps. But we're waiting and waiting and waiting, and the person that we're waiting for, we wait for the first day, we wait for the second day. Does the person ever come? We don't know until the person does come, and maybe that is when we actually die. It's a really fascinating play. I loved learning about it in my first year of university, and that's why I bought the parallel text, because I could get the humour in French and the humour in English. But he is bilingual, French and English, and the play was first written in French, and then he translated it himself. So there is an author, very famous author, who is both English and French, but chose to write in a language that wasn't necessarily his mother tongue, and then chose to translate it back into it. So fascinating author, fascinating play, really one of my favourite plays. What else to tell you? Yes, done that one. Okay. Third one. What has Miss Keers got for you? Right, this is the one with the 12-year-old girl. I've got to be careful. So, there is a Russian author called Vladimir Nabokov. Can anybody speak Russian? That's good, neither can I. Oh no, that's not true. I can say spasiba, which means thank you, and I can say niet, which means not, or no. However, this particular author was fluent in French, English, and Russian. So he was trilingual. So he was born in Russia, lived in Berlin, so no doubt he became fluent in German, met his wife, went to America, and when he was little he had a French governess, so she brought him up in French. So this author is trilingual. Did never write in Russian. His first attempts at Russian he wasn't happy with. So he ended up choosing English as his language of choice. And he wrote a book in 1955, a novel, which is very controversial, called Lolita. And it was so controversial. It was written firstly in English. Lovely front cover. I'm so pleased the front cover looks like this. Very anodyne front cover. He wrote it firstly in English. However, it was so controversial that he translated it into French and he published it in France first, because he thought that the UK, the English and the American public would not be able to cope with the content. He was frightened it would be censored. And it is about a man, very strangely called Humbert, who falls in love with his ward. He falls in love with his 12-year-old adopted daughter, if you like. And as you can imagine, she's 12, it's not the kind of thing that we advocate. Therefore, it went to France first. However, you can now purchase it in English. So I'm just going to read you a little excerpt, which will give you a little taste of perhaps what we're not going to read if we're 12. Ready? Come and kiss your old man, I would say, and drop that moody nonsense. In former times, when I was still your dream male, you swooned to records of the number one throb and sob idol. There we go. However, interestingly, it is also hailed as one of the best English literary works of the 20th century, which I'm pleased about because it's of literary significance. I'm so pleased we've got it in English because, you know, when you're of age, don't you want to read it? Don't you want to find out about it? Gosh, would I want to. Now, I've also purchased this.
Frida?
Why is that one thicker than the other?
Good girl. So this one I also purchased because this is a critique of the novel. And I want to understand a little bit more about its controversial status of the time. So this one says, the annotated Lolita. So this one is annotated. So this one has got notes in it as you read through that help you understand the context and the controversialness of the actual text itself. So I've bought 2 copies, just in case I'm interested enough to want to know the notes. So perhaps it goes like that. Yes, we're moving on from him. However, fascinating that he was trilingual. trilingual, which means he spoke English and French and Russian equally as well. So I wonder what language he dreamed in.
So the book's like 18 plus, because...
Yes. Don't try and read it.
Not anywhere around.
But it has to be mentioned because it is of literary significance. So we're not going to hide it from anybody, are we? It exists. But what I'm fascinated with more than actually the story is the fact that he chose to write it in English, knowing he could have also written in French, which he did, and Russian because that was his birth language, if you discount English and French, which are not birth languages, but he spoke them equally as well. Okay. So the next one, these two books are also written by him. They're actually the same story, but they're second-hand, so I managed to acquire both of them. This is the story of his life with his nanny, who spoke French. So this is how he acquired his linguistic talent, I suppose. And it's a story of his nanny. And it's in French, because he was written in French, his nanny was French, and it's just called Mademoiselle O. And that's on purpose, because his nanny was a representative of lots of women in his life. And so he didn't really name her, he just gave her an enigmatic title. So this is his novel in French, and this is his novel in English. And this one is by far much more famous, but both published and both can be bought today, although I have to confess that's second-hand, this one, so you might not be able to find this in shops. But this one is still published. Okay, moving on from him, we move on to an African author. So this African author is called Chinua Achebe, and he's extremely famous in the African continent. And he is a Nigerian writer, so he obviously comes from Nigeria. And I don't know if you know anything about African cultures, but a lot of their native tongues are verbal. So they don't have an alphabet and they don't write in their tribal languages. It's simply like the troubadours of Europe. They will pass on their stories by speech. So their language is spoken only. So he speaks a language called Igbo, which you probably can find texts in now, because nowadays people are fascinated by other people's languages. But originally the language did not have a written form. It was just sounds that you made, and you communicated via these sounds. Now, knowing, obviously, nobody can write Igbo, let alone speak it, he chose to write in the colonial language of the time, which was English. So he is a Nigerian author who speaks fluent Igbo, that's his natural native tongue in Nigeria, but he chose to write in English. But he thought to himself, I am not going to just write in English. I want my culture to come through, although nobody will understand my language, because it's not written and nobody learns it in Europe or the rest of the world. So he chooses to write words and phrases in his Igbo language inside the novel. The novel is called Things Fall Apart, and it is recommended reading for all African schools because it's about colonialism. It's about when the white slave masters entered Africa and destroyed the status quo and acquired slaves. And it is required reading to teach the young Africans, this is your history, and this is what your forefathers went through. It's extremely famous. And I have a friend, an African, first-generation African friend, who said, oh, yes, I read this in French when I was going to school in Africa. Interesting. It's written in English, however. The original version is in English. And it's very sad. It's a sad novel. It makes us reflect on history and how we destroy other cultures if we're not careful. And I love the title, Things Fall Apart, if you put humans involved with them. And so it's a really, really powerful story if you read it. Now, what was special about this particular one is that not only does it have words within that belong to the Igbo language, so one of them is Egwuwu, and an Egwuwu is an impersonator of ancestral spirits. Now, I've been told that that's how you pronounce that word, but you spell it Egwukwu, so it's slightly differently spelt. that word comes up all the time in the text. So unless you know what that word represents, you'll miss some of the meaning in the story. And there are other parts of the story that reflect the African tendency to use proverbs. And I don't know if you know this about tribal African cultures. Their whole life is animistic. So before we had Christianity and Islam, they believed in spirits of nature. So rocks, spirits, snakes turn into people. And it's their base faith, which still exists today, interestingly, in parallel with Islam and in parallel with Christianity. They will never give up their animistic beliefs. It's fascinating how it weaves into each other's culture, everybody's culture. So with this proverbial use of language, there are a lot of proverbs in the novel that reflect the culture, and I love this fascination with proverbs. So you may have heard this. You may have heard, I'm going to continue doing this until God has painted the sky. So in other words, you're going to continue doing this forever because God has painted the sky forever. Or if you don't believe something will happen, so we have in English the analogy, that's going to happen when pigs fly. In Africa, they will say, or in certain tribal languages, they will say, oh, that will happen when chickens grow teeth. Mm-hmm. So the fascination is that we have the same analogies within different cultures, although we are continents apart. So there are other proverbs which the tribal languages use in order to help teach you about the moralistic type of life that you're supposed to be living. And one of them is, proverbs are the palm oil with which words are eaten. And that's a very well-known African proverb. Palm oil is something they eat all the time. They use palm oil to colour the rice, to cook with, and it's a staple oil that they will have in Africa. And you eat it with everything. So they're saying that proverbs help you understand the language, like palm oil gives that extra taste to your food, enables the food to be cooked well. There's another one, and it's, he who brings cola brings life. And you're thinking, cola? Isn't that Coca-Cola? Yes. Coca-Cola comes from the cola nut. And the cola nut you cannot find in this country. So are you impressed that I have one?
Yes, really
Yes, you
impressed.
are. So this has been shipped over to my friend, my African friend. And cola nuts arrive in the world in a great big pod like a cocoa pod. And if you break open a cocoa pod, which are about this big, inside you will find these little cocoa beans which you dry in the sun and they turn into the cocoa powder that we put into chocolate with sugar. It's exactly the same as a cola nut. So a cola nut comes in a huge pod, and inside are these little seeds. And some of them are red, and some of them are white, and some of them are pink. And inside the pod, you will have these three colours. And the cola nut, beginning with a K, is how they used to make Coca-Cola in the late 1800s when it was first invented. And the cola nut was shredded and mixed with cocaine. That is why it is called cocaine cola.
Oh.
Coca-Cola.
That makes sense, but I don't like how it makes.
So in 1899, or in the late 1800s, when Coca-Cola was first invented, they used to take the cocaine leaf, mix it with the cola nut, and produce this bitter-tasting drink, which people became addicted to because it had cocaine in it. And then later on, in about the early, sort of 20th century, perhaps in 1920s and 30s, the Coca-Cola company took it over and realised, maybe we shouldn't be using cocaine. And they continued using the cola nut for a certain amount of time until today, just need to let you know, Coca-Cola is not made from cocaine or the cola nut. It's made from sort of synthetic materials, which for some of us are just as addictive, and therefore, in my opinion, slightly worse for us, because they are not based on any natural products. However, go on.
Never mind, I forgot what I was going to say.
Why is it in water?
No, does that mean you, like, if you were underage, you weren't allowed to buy Coca-Cola?
Probably not in the late 1800s, because they probably didn't realise the effect that cocaine had. It was just, oh, this makes me really kind of happy. It was only later when they realised, oh my goodness me, this is causing substantial damage, that they learn, we're going to stop making Coca-Cola out of cocaine.
Okay.
Yeah, why do you have it in water?
Good girl. So, this is because these cola nuts are edible. So, it's a lovely story about cola nuts. They are extremely strong with caffeine. So they are stronger. If you have a bite of a cola nut, it gives you a hit which is stronger than a cup of coffee. So they're full of caffeine. And not only are they full of caffeine, but they are also extremely bitter. Very, very bitter. And for some reason, my friend likes to eat them. They are eaten all over Africa. The cola nut you will see in all market stalls. It's extremely bitter. I don't think I'll be able to, but you pull it apart, you break it apart, and you put it between your teeth and you chew it. It's really, really bitter. I've tried it, I don't like it. But my friend loves it because my friend has grown up eating it. So it's addictive slightly because it's got caffeine in it, and if you like me and you're addicted to chocolate, then you get your caffeine hit. And it's also an acquired taste. And the beautiful thing about it is, when you get married, all the guests at your wedding receive a cola nut. And the bride and groom give each other a cola nut when they marry. So it's extremely symbolic, not only of culture, but of religion, of relationships, and it's also a healthy way in which you can give yourself a little bit of a hit of energy. And it's a nut and a seed, and it's natural. What's fascinating about it is nobody knows about it. If you were to read the cola nut in here, you'd think, oh, that's a really weird word. I wonder if that's from where Coca-Cola comes from. And you might look it up on Google, and you might actually get to the end of the story and think, yes, it is. Or you may not. He who brings cola brings life. He who gives me the cola nut is telling me, you mean something to me. I'm giving you this nut. So it's a bit like receiving a favour at a wedding. Your favour is your cola nut. So it's fascinating. Yeah.
When cocaine and caffeine be like really, like
Really?
a massive boost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why it took off. A drink that gives you an instant hit high. Ha ha. Yeah, not for long though, don't worry. We're all still alive on this planet because we're not drinking the original Coca-Cola. But it is, I've always wanted to know how Coca-Cola has been made, and I've recently found out. Now, the beautiful thing about this is it's so full of cultural references. He chose to stick with English because he can't write in Igbo because the language doesn't exist in written form, but he chose to pass on his culture. So he doesn't neglect his culture. He writes about it. He talks about it. He uses words in the text that are referencing his culture, which is also a fascination. Okay, anything more to tell you about my little friend? He calls his English African English or Nigerian English. We don't have a term African English, do we? It's English. But because of his dotted African words throughout the text, it almost is as if you are reading the Igbo. So it's a lovely story, but it's sad. It's quite a sad story. Okay, I've also purchased York Notes, Things Fall Down, because I'd also like to read a little bit more about the egg woo-woo and about cola nuts.
It's on the IGCSE English Literature specification.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow, thanks, B. Okay, so that's how popular it is. I can't wait to tell my friend. So, these are all authors, apart from little one who can't actually write in Igbo because nobody would understand it and it's not a written language. These are authors who choose to write in English or French, who choose to write in a language other than their native language. Have you ever chosen to write in anything else apart from English yourself? No. Oh.
French and German oral questions.
Good girl. But that's under instruction, isn't it? Would you choose to write something in another language for your own benefit?
My sister wrote
I have.
You have?
I have too.
I've written short stories in French.
You're amazing. Have you read these short stories in French?
No.
You must share these short stories.
No.
That is fascinating. And yourself?
Well, I didn't really finish, but I started it. But I think I had to do something else, but I wanted to. And I did start. It was in
I am
Latin.
going to encourage you by the end of this session. I will encourage you to do that. Because your English becomes richer because of your links with the language syntax in other languages. So Oscar Wilde, who wrote The Picture of Dorian Gray, he was fluent in English, French and German. Did you know that? So Oscar Wilde, who is English, grew up speaking 3 languages, came from an extremely academic family, and he wrote his very famous novel. I think, Miss Huntley, it's the only novel he wrote,
Yes.
The Picture of Dorian Gray.
Otherwise it was short stories, yeah.
Thank you. And extremely successful. I read it when I think I was about 21, so a good 30 years ago. Loved it. He thought to himself, I can speak French and I can speak German. My native language is English. I'm going to write a play in French. So he wrote a play in French.
We're really putting out the controversy today. Wow.
We're not going to go too deeply into this one, B. He wrote a play called Salome, which is, it's to do with a biblical story, let's put it like that. So it's about John the Baptist, in so many words. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but this is his French play that he wrote in French, and it is published. I have a copy of a published version of it, so it is still in print. And again, exactly like our little friend who was bilingual English and French, Samuel Beckett, this story is also a parallel novel, a parallel play. It is a bilingual play, so it has French and English on the same page so that you can hear and see how it works. He also translated it into English from his French, and it reads like this. They are disputing about their religion, French. C'est sur leur religion qu'ils discutent. Now, when you read that together, if you know French, dispute and discute are completely different words. Dispute means to argue, and discute means to discuss. So it's very interesting how Oscar Wilde chose to translate differently from one language to the other, and it was his own text. So it's fascinating to watch or to read the 2 different texts side by side, and you can see the differences in the way in which he's interpreted both of these texts. So, my challenge to you. Go on.
Why was one of the pages blank?
Oh, because it's for notes. So it's actually a study book. So you've got notes at the back, loads of notes. And within the story as well, within the play as well, there are loads of notes pages. And at the beginning of the play, it's a study play. So it says, we have written this play for you to make notes all over it. So it encourages annotations all over because it's a study play. That's why it's blank. I will encourage you, but I don't need to encourage you guys because you've tried already, to consider what your input would be if you were to write in a foreign language. our little friend here, Joseph Conrad, chose to write in English because he was distanced enough from the English in order to make it more effective. He didn't like writing in his native Polish. He found it too harsh, and he chose not to write in French. He chose English because of the way in which he was able to put the words together. He just felt it was more satisfying. So what would you do? Where do you start if you want to even read something else in a foreign language? Where do you start? Well, you start with children's stories. So you would start with your Mr. Men books, wouldn't you? Okay. You would start with perhaps your German Mr. Men books. So you could probably guess what these are. Miss Gegenteil. Gegenteil means opposite. So this is Miss Opposite. Mr. Zickzack, or is that actually upside down? It's Zackig. Do you recognise him?
Mr. Quick.
Mr. Rush. Yeah, good girl. Miss Hilfsbereit.
Miss Sunshine.
She's actually Miss Helpful. Hilfsbereit in German, but looks like sunshine. And this one, this is my sister's favourite Mr. Men.
Mr. Shy.
It's Mr. Quiet. But yes, you're right. And his is Schweigsam. Schweigsam is... And then we have a huge number of French ones, which are probably easier to get. So we've got Monsieur Neige.
Snow.
Yeah. We've got Monsieur Rigolo.
Mr.
Clown.
Yeah. We've got Monsieur Endormi.
Daisy.
Yes.
Aww.
Except endormi means fallen asleep, as you can see on the cover. But we say Mr. Lazy. They say Mr. Fall Asleep. Monsieur Sal.
Miss Squiggles.
Messy.
You haven't read your Mr. Men.
Yeah.
What is he?
Messy.
Messy. Now, what is sale in French?
Dirty.
Dirty. So very often if something is dirty, it's not quite right. So they think, oh, that's messy, it's dirty. So they say Monsieur Sale, Mr. Dirty. This one you'll get.
Tickle.
Mr. Tickle. And chatouiller is to tickle. What's Monsieur Parfait?
Perfect.
Yeah, Mr. Perfect. We like him. Monsieur Achum.
Nice to see.
Yep, and that's actually how you sneeze in French. There are also cultural ways of sneezing. Mr. Bing?
Bounce.
Mr. Bounce. Notice they've chosen Bing in French. We have Monsieur Rêve.
Dream.
Yeah, Mr. Dream. But what is he called in English? Mr. Daydream. Daydreams a lot, yeah. And then the last one I've got is Monsieur Bavard.
Laugh. Like chat.
That's the second one you said?
Chatterbox.
Chatterbox, excellent. So Mr. Chatterbox. So if you're going to read something in a foreign language, choose a children's book first to just tickle your taste buds. Chatouiller, I should say. Progressing on from there, when I was a younger person thinking about what I wanted to read in a foreign language, my second recommendation is that you choose something that you have read before in English, because then you know the story. So, you can choose to read Heidi in German, because you know all about Heidi. You know that she lives in the mountain with her grandfather and she eats cheese and bread. Quite a long novel, but certainly something that you'll be familiar with, so you'll be understanding some of the context already. You might want to choose to read a story that was meaningful to you when you were little. This is Jonathan Livingston, Le Joëlan, and one of my favourite books that I was introduced to when I was at primary school, and it was read to us in an assembly. And it's Jonathan Livingston Seagull. It's about a seagull who flies off into the distance and starts his life without his parents. It's a philosophical story, but it's very, very childlike, and it's very short, and it's got pictures in it, and it's reflective. It's one of my favourite books when I was a child. Or, another one, you could have Le Chien des Baskerville. Yeah. So, if you like Sherlock Holmes, I'm a buff. I mean, when I say I'm a buff, I like Sherlock Holmes, but you don't quiz me, because there are lots about Sherlock Holmes that I don't know. But I love the style, and I love the story. So when I went to France for a month, I took this with me without a dictionary, which is not Miss Keers. I'm an active reader. I like to learn my words. And I thought, no, I'm going to read this without a dictionary. And it's amazing how much you understand because you know the story already. So that's The Hound of the Baskervilles. You might also know, if you know Sherlock Holmes, this one is Le Ruban Moucheté. ruban is a band.
Oh, the speckled band.
Good girl, Miss Huntley. This is the speckled band. It's actually, I won't tell you what the speckled band is because I will ruin it. But this is another Sherlock Holmes story. So because I'm a Sherlock Holmes reader, would be really easy because I can fill in the gaps with the words that I don't know if I'm choosing another story. Sort of grown up now, so let's go to the Da Vinci Code. So I bought myself the Da Vinci Code after I read it, interestingly, fascinatingly, and look at that. So the Da Vinci Code in English, hardback, and in French, softback. This was bought for me by my brother. There's a little sort of Amazon, this is for your birthday, because he knew I like the Da Vinci Code, and guess what? I speak French. I have to confess I have not read it in French, but if I were to, it would be my go-to book because I've already read it in English. So I'm going to books that I know the story of because there's going to be a fascination and an ease into the story.
I actually have in my bag right now Harry Potter in French.
Let me come on to Harry Potter. Do you have this one?
Which one?
Wow.
No.
No. This one is Harry Potter et la coupe de feu.
The Goblet of Fire.
Good girl, the Goblet of Fire, yes. Now, this was also purchased by my other brother for me to try and get me into Harry Potter because I hate to say this, Shears family, I don't like Harry Potter. I mean, the stories. I don't have an appeal. They don't appeal to me for some reason. I understand why they appeal to other people, but they don't appeal to me. So my brother said to me, I tell you what, I'll buy you the book in French because you're bound to read it, and maybe it will appeal to you through the medium of French because it doesn't appeal to you through the medium of English. So again, a novel that I know the story of because I've read the film. I mean, I've watched the film. But it doesn't appeal to me, but perhaps it might in a different language. And that's also another reason why it might be interesting to pick up something in a different language. You might have access to that language and that story because it's written in a non-native tongue. You might find something in that language that appeals to you better. Fascinating. One last thing to say, although this isn't books, if you're also into foreign language films, Da Vinci Code, Harry Potter, Sherlock Holmes, which you can find, you will also find that watching a film that you are familiar with in a foreign language will help you access the language and give you immense satisfaction. There is a film called The 12th Warrior. Don't watch it, it's horror. I watched it when I went to France. It's called The 13th Warrior. It's called Le 13e Guerrier. And it's about a hero who saves a village from marauders. And it's a great film in French. And I remember watching it thinking, oh, I love this film, it's fantastic. I took it home, showed it to my dad and said, look, I've bought it in English. Let's watch it together, it's such a good film. He turned it off after 5 minutes and I was hiding behind the sofa. And I thought, how is this? I've watched it in French, it's fab, I love it. And in English, it was a different type of experience. It suddenly became horrific because I was able to understand it much more quickly because it was in English, my native tongue. And I thought, oh, something to do with listening, speaking in a foreign language distances you enough from that text, from that film, enough for you to have a separate interpretation of it. I wonder if we were to read Heart of Darkness in French, or if we were able to in Polish, would we find the text different? Would it sell itself to us differently? And that, again, I'm reiterating, I'm repeating myself, that is one of the beauties of picking up something in a foreign language and being able to access it. It tells you something more about the person, more about the author, more about the culture that you would be deprived of had you not had that ability. It just opens up the world, culture, feelings, thoughts in a way that nothing else does. I hope you go away and you perchance continue to write in your foreign languages and read in your foreign languages. It adds something to the soul. And as a human being, it helps you understand your humanness on many, many different levels.
You said that if you were to read in another language, to start with something you have already read. But all the books I've read are not small, short books.
Oh, give me an example of what you've read.
Verity by Colin Hoover.
So have you attempted to find Verity by Colin Hoover in another language?
Yeah.
And?
I think I found it.
Okay, so you could start it. How long ago did you read it in English?
Before the Easter holiday.
Oh my gosh, so it's very fresh in your head. So it's a choice. You can either choose to read Heidi, it's quite a thick book, even though you know the story, or you can choose never having read Mr. Quiet before.
I've never read that.
There we go, so you could choose. But if you are deciding to start with something that you want to read in your foreign language, it's an idea to start small but familiar. If you've already got big and familiar, go for it, see if it works for you. But I would start small, I think, with something that perhaps you haven't read before. Or, tell you what, read Mr. Small in English, and then come and find me and I'll lend you it in German or French. So, yes, that's what I would advocate.
There's an offer.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miss
Thank
Keers.
you very much.
Thank you.
If anything, I would give you a piece of cola nut, but I
Yeah,
shan't,
I think not.
because it is extremely bitter. And I need to give it back to my friend. And we put it back in the water because it keeps it fresh.
No one was tempted, were they?
Nobody was, interestingly. Not even Miss
Good thing.
Keers. There we go.
All right, thank you, Miss Keers.
Thank you very
Very
much.
much.
Any last questions, Miss Keers?
Last questions from Miss Keers?
Or comments? Or
Comments?
I think it's interesting about Heart of Darkness because he is writing about the Congo and, of course, the horrors of the Belgian colonialism, and yet it's symbolic, isn't it? It's oblique.
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's very...
we get things like the horror,
Yeah.
Mr. Coetzee dead, but the real horror. So it's almost as if he's distancing himself. Whereas in French,
Oh.
he might have.
Yes, because in the Congo they speak French. Yes, it might have a different impact. That's
Might
very
have a
interesting,
different
but
impact.
yeah, indeed. It's also a completely different continent. He's writing about a completely different culture in a completely different language. What a man. Fascinating person to decide to do that. I mean, would you have any last comments for me? Any questions for me?
I noticed that there's no female authors on this table apart from J.K. Rowling, who I believed wrote her novels in English for
Yes.
the first time. So do you know of any female
What a good
authors?
question. No. And I found it very difficult to find authors who had written in foreign languages. And I imagine that there will come to light other authors in the future.
Well, there's Elif Shafak, isn't there? She writes in English.
she does write in English, yes,
And
and she's
Her first
Turkish.
She's
Turkish.
Turkish.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's
there you
the
go.
writer that wrote The Safe Key.
Oh,
Was that translated though?
but is that
It
translated?
wasn't
know how
translated, but she is not her first language, isn't it?
I'll have to look that up. I don't know. Do you know?
No, I can't remember.
Yeah, Ada Shafak,
Yeah.
definitely.
Mm.
She's a great author as well. Does some good non-fiction too.
Mm.
It's a skill to be able to do that. I just haven't been able to find famous, because notably old, when there weren't many female writers around at the time. So perhaps that's why I haven't chosen any females. It's very difficult to find a bilingual author who has chosen to write in their non-native tongue. Had I managed to find a female, she'd be here. Oh, there we go. There's one.
Another
She's
one.
sitting right beside
There's
you.
two. There's two.
Yeah. There's two. There you go. You could be the females of the future. And try writing poetry. You tried writing poetry in a foreign language? That's hilarious. You can just write a couple of words and they rhyme in different places where they won't rhyme in English. So it's a really fascinating thing to be able to do. Have you written your diary in French? Do you write a diary? Have you
A
decided
bit
to write?
of my journal in Turkish.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
See?
There we go.
Yeah.
That's like junk journaling for like when you're in that country.
It's still writing,
still
practical writing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very
Food
good.
for thought.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you very much,
Thank you
Miss
very
Keers.
much,
Should we
Keers.
wave to the camera? Bye. Bye.